Afternoon all, welcome. So it looks like it's all working. Looks like there's a few people here, which is great. So I'll get started. First thing I'll do though is let you know that if you've got anything you want to ask me about in terms of photography or tips, tricks, or anything to do with the Academy, drop it in the comments because that's a big part of what I do. I'm just going to put the website address in here now, which I should have done earlier, which is beyondthelensacademy.com. Beyond, I know it's on the Facebook page and all that kind of stuff, but it's better to have it in here so you know where it is. .com, right, beyondthelensacademy.com. Okay, so that's the website link. Anyway, I'll make a start. Looks like there's a few people here. So thanks for joining me. I'm Carl Thomas. I run Beyond the Lens Academy, as well as a Carl Thomas Photography, which is a specialist dog photography business I set up going on 6 years ago now, 5.5 years ago. You can probably see, there it is on my shirt. So this is also being streamed to that page. So there's lots of my lovely doggy followers on there, as well as lots of my previous and potential clients. So welcome to all of you if you're watching. So what's Beyond the Lens Academy all about? So it's something I set up when my journey in terms of my photography sort of career so far has been, I've had a camera for a long time, 30 odd years, but I decided to set up Carl Thomas Photography as a dog photography business 5.5 years ago. Bit of a hobby, to be honest. I didn't really have massive expectations, but the rest is history. 25,000 people follow me now, lots of very happy clients, and a really successful, fast-growing business, which is great. But along that journey, I learned a lot. I went on lots of workshops, I went on lots of webinars, I watched lots of YouTube videos, I subscribed to various different online activities, bought books, read stuff, and all that kind of stuff that we all try and do. And I still do now, in fairness, because it's an ongoing learning program. Or not program, but photography is a constant thing. But what I did find was that all of the content was all over the place. It was not in one place, and it was varying in terms of its quality and the way it was delivered. So the big reason behind Beyond the Lens Academy, which is an online training and support platform for photographers at every level, is having somewhere for that. So you could join as a beginner. You've just got your first camera, or you had your first camera for a while, you're getting your camera for Christmas, or you've just got a smartphone, whatever it might be, you can join. And we've got content in terms of online training, one-to-one stuff, resources, and everything else that will help you as a beginner. And the same for amateurs, and the same for pro aspiring pros. So there's 3 levels. And what that means is you can join, and we've had people do this, join as beginners, get used to your camera, get off auto and all that, and we'll touch on all that sort of stuff in a minute. But it allows you to grow up in the academy. So whatever level you're at, you can join, and we've got some content for you. So that's kind of the reason I set up. Now, some of the things that are in it, let me just have a little look for you. So here's something that I think is important. Now, I went on lots of workshops, so I built relationships with the people at workshops I went on, so you could have some kind of conversation. But a lot of the content that's out there at the moment, and as you'll probably see, there is absolutely tons of it, has become available. A lot of it is just where you pay X amount of money and you get to watch 10 videos or 20 videos or whatever it might be. And yes, you can watch them over and over again, but there's no other interaction. So one of the things we do in the academy, which is really important for me and our members, is it's kind of like live. So obviously there's loads of content in the academy at different levels that you can watch that's been pre-recorded, but that's being added to on a literally daily basis, or most days in the week. And you can message me and ask me questions. So that's important. We've got a private Facebook group, very popular. It's only for people in the academy and anybody who's either done one-to-one training with me, because obviously I do that, and any of my workshops, which we'll touch on in a minute, are all in that group. And so there's lots of people sharing tips, techniques, asking for feedback, getting advice, talking about new equipment, sharing success. We've had a number of people who joined the academy in recent months and who've set up a new business with everything that's going on. There's quite a few people thinking, maybe I'll go down that direction and set up businesses and getting big orders in, which is great. So that's all going on there. Now, this bit, and I always say this, I know, but it always makes me smile because an online training support platform, beyondthelensacademy.com, you would expect it to have online modules, wouldn't you? Well, of course, it does. However, ours are better and different. At least I like to think so. And some of the feedback from members would suggest that we are pretty much on the money. Have a look at the reviews on the Beyond the Lens Academy Facebook page. There's quite a few people telling you what they think about the academy. But the important thing to know about this is, so if you joined as a beginner, amateur, or pro, whatever level it is, you get into your library, and there's your library for the level you've joined at, as well as a thing called the Hub. The Hub is available to everybody, and it's got content that's available and relevant to everybody, and resources, and literally, there's tons of stuff in there. And then you have your library, which has got existing and lots of existing content in there that you can watch and sort of go through, and resources. But that's being added to. And the way we do the online learning modules is I record them live, it's a bit like this sort of format. So I might be talking about, I don't know, managing depth of field, for example, and I'll spend, they're normally about half an hour. It used to be a bit longer, but I'm trying to make them a bit more sort of punchy now. So they're about half an hour or so-ish. Members can come along if they're available, and in the comments, they'll ask questions as I'm going through the workshop, if you like. And it makes it a little bit more interactive, a bit more interesting. And then when that's finished, that's recorded, uploaded into the Academy. So those that can't join can watch it at their leisure, over and over again, obviously. But there's the ability to continue commenting. So whilst they are online learning modules, they are organic in that they start to grow and add value as we go forward. So I think that's important to note. We've got a mobile app. I mean, who hasn't these days? Really important. We've got one, so you can see all your content on the go. The webinars that I talked about, which is the sort of the training content. I mean, obviously this is a Facebook Live, and I try and do these at least once a week. We are doing a lot this week because we're opening for new members on Friday, Thursday at midnight for 3 days, and I'll come on to that in a minute. But the actual webinars for members in the Academy, whether it's for all of them or specific sections, I'm doing them every week. So last week, I think I did 5. This week's about 3 or 4, maybe, I can't remember. But there's quite a few, and that's constantly adding to the content. So it's not something you join, and it's a fixed amount of content that once you've got through, it's like, now what? It's constantly evolving. So it's really important. New gear reviews, interesting. That's so much going on at the moment. So I quite often come on and do live videos that are in the Academy about new equipment and what I think about them, and the good, bad, and the uglier, so to speak. But also what we do get quite a lot of is members in the Academy will say to me, look, Carl, I'm thinking about getting a new camera or a new lens. What do you think? And I'll help them with that, because it's important to make sure people get what they need, not what they want. And there's often a big difference, especially with technology out there. It's so confusing. Group image critiques. This is very popular. We've got one, in fact, tomorrow night. So we typically, I set a theme, and we normally have it a couple of weeks in advance. So the last one we did was landscapes, sunsets, sunrises, or it might have been sunsets and sunrise, can't remember. But it was very well subscribed to. People in the Academy, members, uploading 2 images typically, the before image and the after image, and the settings, so that when I will then put all that in, the team will put all that in together into a sort of presentation. We go live, and then we go through it step by step. And, you know, because I've seen the original image and the edited image and the settings, I can be much more constructive in my feedback. And we really, really do give what's called critical analysis. And not just, that's a nice image. It's all more about getting feedback. And let's face it, photography is quite a lonely thing. So, you know, there's lots of photographers who've joined the Academy who are really enjoying not just learning new techniques and skills, but really, really enjoying the fact that they're getting feedback and constructive help and feedback about their images. So that's an important thing that we do. We do that on a one-to-one basis as well. So if you're an amateur and you're trying to get a portfolio together because of your landscapes, or you're a pro, aspiring pro, and you're trying to sort of manage your portfolio, then we do that on a one-to-one basis. Then a couple more things. This is really important. Monthly choose your subject one-to-one. So if you join as a beginner, anybody who joins the Academy, basically, I do an introduction one-to-one webinar with each one of those individually, whatever level you're at. It takes a lot of time, but I think it's really important, because I like to make sure that I've met everybody, which is important, I think, but also to understand in some more detail, you know, why did you join the Academy? What camera equipment have you got? And it's all a form that you fill out online first. You know, what's holding you back? What do you want to learn? Where do you want to take your photography? So that I can make sure we deliver content that's relevant to the people in the Academy based on what they're looking for at the moment. Now, there are obviously some logical steps, you know, if you're a beginner getting off auto, you know, we'll come on to that in a minute. You might start off with the exposure triangle and then look at different settings. So there's some logical processes, but within it, there'll be things that quite a lot of people are saying, oh, Carl, I'd like to know about. For example, at the moment, we just did one the other week on autumn editing autumn colors, how to make the most of the lovely light that we've got. And, you know, that fits in with the time of year and somebody, you know, really being interested in that. So that's one of the important things to know, that everybody joins gets a one-to-one. Then if you're an amateur, there's a sort of monthly one-to-one where you come along with me and you have a conversation for an hour with me about whatever you want to talk about. It might be a new camera, it might be settings, it might be thinking about setting a website up, it might be whatever it is, we do that. Now, the last bit in terms of the one-to-ones, they are unlimited. So if you go to the website, beyondthelensacademy.com, you'll see there's, at the moment you can't join, but there's a part way down, there's a thing that looks like, where is it? Let me show you a picture of what you're looking for. Keep moving my images around. I'll stop doing this. There we go. Looks a bit like that. And what that does is it shows you what all the features are on each of the different levels. But if you join as a pro aspiring pro, the one-to-ones are unlimited, which is extraordinary value for money. Because what that means is you can come on every week with me and have a chit chat and discuss whatever it needs to be discussed. So if you're thinking about setting up a business, or you've got an issue with social media, or you've got a client that's causing a problem, or you're not quite sure how to manage something, it's really important. And so some clients, because it's unlimited, are doing that 2 or 3 times a week. Because let's face it, if you've got a business, your challenges don't come up on a Wednesday every week. They come up whenever they come up. And you look at the reviews, and I keep saying it, but have a look. I'm very responsive, and it's all done with me and the team supporting the background, but it's always me sort of handling all the questions. So that's just something to bear in mind. All right, let me get rid of that one. And then the last one, before I get into some sort of more images and tips and questions or anything. So if you've got any questions, put them in the comments, is workshops. So if you're a member, you get discounted photography workshops, and that applies to the 2-day ones that I do in Stratfield Say, south of Reading, north of Basingstoke, beautiful Duke of Wellington estate. Can't run them at the moment, but I've run quite a lot this year. Maybe we're trying to hopefully see what goes on, but we might get one in December, but we'll see. There are 2 days, part theory, settings, techniques, equipment and all that kind of stuff. Small groups, so at whatever level you're at, there it works, because there's time for one-to-one conversations. And then practical photography, we're out and about actually using cameras, very popular. The other kind of workshops, if you go on the website, you'll see we run sort of wildlife, landscape and general photography workshops that are in different parts of the country. So we have, for example, at the moment, Islay in the Inner Hebrides, beautiful island. Next year in June, we had a week that sold out in a matter of days. And the second week is almost full. So if you go on, you'll see it. There is space if you're interested in. But and we're doing the same in Scotland. We do a winter one where we go up and get snow ptarmigan and not snow, ptarmigan in the snow, and red squirrels, deer, hare, eagles, whatever. And that's again same thing. We had a week in the first week in February, sold out almost overnight, within a few days. So we've got a week before, which is really quite a result because it's burn season up there. So people go nuts up there in terms of lots of activities. It's difficult to get accommodation. If you have a look at the website, you'll see the pictures. We don't do anything by half in the academy, so the accommodation is absolutely outstanding. Both of the webinars, they're beautiful locations. It's wildlife, landscapes. There's workshop stuff in the evening, so it's all fully catered. So all you got to do is bring your camera equipment and a bottle of wine if you like to have a drink in the evening. The rest is covered. So Alan Ward, who runs them with me, a very well-known wildlife photographer and videographer. So in the evenings we'll be doing workshops, individual conversations, and presentation stuff. So it's a good all-round thing. So they are very popular. So that's the other kind of workshop we do. So let me just get into some of the things that we do for different levels. And one of the things, before I get into that, one of the things that people often ask me about, I've had a lot of emails this week already, which is great. It's really exciting, about, when can I join? How do I join? How much is it? And so on. So we run what's called a closed membership, which means that right now we are closed. You can't join. If you go to the website, everything's there. If you go to the membership pages, it just says opening on Friday. So we are open on Friday for 3 days. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's when you'll be able to join, and you can join at each level. And there is monthly and annual options for each one of those levels. And at the moment, we're pretty much finalised the pricing, but we're hoping to keep the level of discounts we last did. In fact, what we're probably going to do is basically keep the prices the same as they were before, but show people what the new prices are likely to be. So very significant discounts, almost 40% on some of them. And we've kept it, much to the annoyance of the finance team, because, excuse my cough, there's a lot going on. The world's a bit strange at the moment, so I think it's important to sort of try and be helpful on that front. But the reason for it is we spend our time, and we're obsessive about supporting our members. I keep saying it, have a look at the reviews, see what people are saying. So we're all over our members like a rash. We help and support them at whatever level they're at instantly, as well as obviously all the content that we provide. And that requires resource. So we're member focused, pointing that way towards our members now. Now we're obviously a business, so we want to get new members in, which is great. And we're getting lots of new members every time we open the doors. Do it 2 or 3 times a year. And that requires marketing and resource. So that takes me away a little bit from the members while I'm doing things like this, Facebook Lives and various other marketing activities. So that's why we only do it 2 or 3 times a year. And the next time is Friday evening, or Thursday night at 12 or 1 a.m. Probably might be before that, to be honest. But so it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. One thing to note, when it gets to Monday morning, we're closed. Every time we do this, people message me on Monday and Tuesday and say, "Oh, Carl, I just noticed, can I join?" I'm like, nope. The reason we do that is that I don't think it's fair for me to come on and do these Facebook Lives and webinars and various other things that we're doing and marketing and tell people what we're doing and saying, if you want to join, make the most of it, get in by Sunday night at the latest, and then let people in the next day. I think that's fair. So we don't. That said, anybody who joins the workshops, who's booked a workshop or booking a workshop, you can join at any time, because of course you've made an investment in training, so that's slightly different. And one other thing before I get into some images and sort of questions, if anybody's got any, it doesn't look like there is yet, but that's fine, is that a few people have asked me, with Christmas coming, especially this year's going to be slightly different, can I gift membership of the Academy to a friend, family, relation, whatever it is, as a Christmas present, or just a present anyway? And the answer is yes. So we've created a voucher, and the way that works is you'll come to me and say, Carl, I want to do a gift for Fred, and we put the little process together, put a little message on it. You pay for the, typically it'll be annual membership at whatever level, and we have a conversation about which is suited, and then you give them that gift on the Christmas day or whatever day it might be. And then there's details in there for them to contact me, and then we get them set up on the system, and they've got a year's worth of activity in the Academy. So we've got that little box ticked, because a lot of people have been asking about that. So quite exciting. So what else have I got on there? Christmas presents mailing list. Oh yes, before I get into images, one of the things that's is quite important at the moment is, I mean, it's always important, but Facebook and online is becoming much more busy, if that makes sense, for obvious reasons. So you would think that if you follow the Facebook page, which I recommend you do, Beyond the Lens Academy Facebook page, you'll constantly see what's going on. You know, when we're opening the doors, when we come up with Christmas ideas, if we change dates, we've got free webinars. But of course, only a small percentage of the people who follow the page get to see posts, because of the way Facebook works. So we've got a mailing list. If you go to the website, it's a big blue button about an inch down, whatever, when you scroll, you'll see it, you can't miss it. And that gets you added to the list. Now, it's really important, because if you're thinking about joining the Academy, or you're not sure yet, or whatever, if you're on that list, I don't spam people. I don't send out tons of emails. I've sent a couple out this week about all the Facebook Lives, but that's probably it. And I might send another one out on Thursday or Friday to say, right, doors are open. But if you're on that list, then you will get notification of Facebook Lives, which are free. I mean, I'm at 7 or 8 this week, or maybe 10 of them. Anything to do with the Academy, to do workshops and stuff like that. So it's a good place to be. But that said, even with it being on the mailing list, you've got to keep your eye on your junk mail and stuff like that, because even only about half of those get open when you send them out. So for me, it's making sure everybody's aware of what we're doing. So enough of me whittling on about the Academy. So let's see if there's any questions. Don't know what there are. But anyway, so let me just show some images and tell you a little bit about how we help people in the Academy. So let's say if you joined as a beginner, one of the most popular things that beginners join for or ask me about in the Academy is this: getting off the auto button, or auto setting. And it will transform your photography. You don't have to do it to get better photography, but it certainly helps a lot. So that's a big thing. So one of the things that we will do is help people by showing them, and starting off with, for beginners, actually some of the amateurs actually, but mostly beginners, we look at this, the basics of photography. What we call the exposure, well, not we, but what is called the exposure triangle. So aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Understanding the relationship between each of those areas is critical at any level of photography to be able to get the exposure that you're trying to achieve. Obviously, playing around with aperture has an impact on the amount of light that's let into the lens, as well as the amount of image that's in focus. ISO has an impact on the level of noise, as well as the sensitivity of the sensor. And shutter speed has an impact on light. The longer it's open, the more light's let in, but obviously as well as motion blur and stuff like that. So, those things are really important. And one of the things that, again, look at the reviews, you'll see that I have a very simplistic approach to it. So photography can be quite overwhelming. Look at all this. Most of us have got a camera, and when you first get it, you find all this sort of stuff, and you're like, oh my goodness, what have I got to do here? The good news is, a lot of that stuff is that stuff you only play with once. A bit like when you get a new gadget, you've got to set the clock on it. But I like to keep things simple. I've got a very straightforward way of explaining the process. So, for example, when we look at the exposure triangle, it's a bit like, autopilot on an aircraft. You're being flown along, and it's on green, and it's going where it's going. That's it. You can sit back and relax, and everything's working perfectly. The minute you want to come off of auto, you switch it off, and then you've got control of the ailerons and the pedals and God knows what else. Same with photography. The minute you come off auto, you've got to start making decisions about the aperture, the shutter speed, and the noise. The ISO. And so we for beginners, and anybody else in the Academy is interested, and these sort of webinars tend to be in what's called the hub, which is accessible to everybody. We'll then go on to say, okay, well, let's talk about each one of those parts in depth. So, for example, we'll spend time on aperture. And, what is aperture? Physically, what is it? It's a hole that's in the lens that lets in more or less light. What do these numbers mean? What impact does it have on focus? And so that's all critical. Same with shutter speed. What is the shutter? How does it work? When would I want a fast shutter speed? When I want a slow shutter speed? If you look at noise, we've got a whole series of webinars on managing noise and removing it and getting better images without noise. But here's a basic example. At the very beginning, you need to understand what it is. So here's a good example of a clean image and a noisy image. ISO 100 and ISO 3200. And you can see on the left, it's nice and clean. On the right, you've got noise. And noise that's what it is. But we go into depth in the academy in explaining the technical side of what that is and how to manage it. The technical side of it tends to be more relevant for amateurs and sort of pros. But even as a beginner, you need to understand the concept of what it creates noise. And every camera is different. And every camera and lens combination is different in terms of how that will deal with noise. So it's really important. Just check the comments. No, nothing here yet. That's fine. But if you've got any questions, pop them in because it's all free. Right. So if you join as let's imagine you join as an amateur. One of the most popular things that we get asked in the amateur section is wildlife photography. How do we get images like this? How do we get them tack sharp? What kind of settings do I use? So on an image like this, for example, put it back up. I would have been shooting that at about 0.02 of a second shutter speed, f2.8. So I've got a nice shallow aperture, so that the gannets that are sitting on the cliff edge there you can see them there, but they're nice and soft focus. I use single point focus. So here's another image that I can show you, which is birds in flight, because whilst I'm a professional dog photographer, I spend a lot of time doing wildlife and people photography and landscapes as well. So it's all part of what we do in the academy. So you don't have to be a dog photographer to join it. We've got people who do everything. So like in this image, I used single point focus so that I could grab the bird's head and get that sharp. If I was using multi-point focus on auto on a DSLR, it was like to grab the wingtip nearest to me, or maybe the one further away, or even the yellowy bits in the background. So it wouldn't be sharp. Now, what we are seeing in the industry is the emergence, well, not the emergence, mirrors has been around for a while, and the world is going that way, it's no question. But some of the new ones, like the Canon EOS R5 and R6, their tracking is absolutely amazing. So it will know, the camera will know, looking at this image here, that that's a bird. So it knows where the head is, and it tracks it. So you could then afford to have all the multiple points out. But on a normal DSLR, I'm 5.5 years of doing what I do, single point focus works. The other thing we often do, let me find this image because I've put it somewhere else, is this. This is a classic shot that amateurs often do or asking me to sort of help them achieve. And, normally in your normal exposure, that's going to be a black blob because of the way you look at the way the camera sees the light. So, what you need to be doing here is overexposing to a reasonable amount and probably a little bit further than you might think, because one of the things with an image in terms of, let me just go back to my things there. Right, one of the things with noise is in the wildlife world, there's a thing called exposed to the right, ETTR. And it's just called, all it basically means is just overexposing a little bit. So letting a bit more light in. So the image might look a little bit on the bright side, but you're going to get more detail. And it's called exposed to the right because typically the needle will go to the right slightly. That's where it comes from. But what that does is get you that little bit of extra detail. In an image like that, you'll need it because otherwise the background's quite bright and it will be dark. But just generally in photography, I do it quite a lot of my dog photography, just to overexpose very slightly. Either in manual, you just overexpose, or if you're using shutter or aperture priority, then just select the exposure compensation by a little plus minus and just plus a bit. The reason for it, you get some more detail, but actually what you're then doing in Lightroom is, or Photoshop, wherever you are, but instead of moving the slider, if it's a bit dark, the way the normal exposure might be, say it's a black dog or that bird that I've just shown you, you're going to be increasing the exposure a bit, increasing the shadows. Now that works in Lightroom and in Photoshop and everywhere else, Camera Raw and Snapseed and Affinity Pro, all of those things that we deal with in the academy. It's a big section on editing, big part of photography. But by increasing shadows and doing it, turning it to the right, the sliders, it will bring noise with it and it adds more noise. Whereas if you're turning an image down, it's a little bit on the bright side, not burnt out, but just a little bit bright, a bit like my shirt is with this little webcam, just a little bit on the bright side. You turn that down, it doesn't add noise. And it's partly how you get, really, really standout images. Landscape photography. Now, this is very popular at all levels of photography, actually. So this is the west coast of Islay, about 5 minutes from the beautiful house that we're staying in next year. So if anybody wants to come along, this is one of the views you'll get to see, and one of the things that we'll be doing. But this is using what's called ND filters. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's effectively like a black, very dark piece of glass or perspex you put in front of the lens, which reduces the amount of light coming in, which means you can do a longer exposure, which is how you get this lovely soft sort of almost painting effect with the sea. And then in this image in particular, I use what's called a graduated filter as well on top of that, which is a bit like the tinted window you have in your car, where it starts at the top and it's quite dark and it slowly gets lighter to a point where it's disappeared. And I had that at the top of the frame here so that I could balance the exposure to make sure the sun wasn't too bright. Then we do long exposures like this. This is a daylight one, and we talk about how we achieve those sort of things. And it's like, excuse me, this cough's driving me nuts. Let me show you another picture. There it is. It's this kind of stuff. Image on the left, image on the right. The difference is the time of the exposure. And sometimes in average light, you can get away with not using filters. But generally speaking, you'll need to use empty filters. So we spend a lot of time in the academy helping people with that and showing them what it is. Let's see if there's any questions. Cool, we're very quiet today, aren't we? But anyway, if you've got questions, please ask. Obviously, the recording of this stays on the Facebook page anyway. Now, if you join as as a pro aspiring pro, and bear in mind what I've just said, or what I said earlier about the unlimited one-to-ones, there are members who have joined as beginners and amateurs who've upgraded to pro aspiring pro. Not that they've got any intention of setting up a business, but what they want is the access to me on a one-to-one basis. We're probably going to be changing it soon because it's become very popular and it is ridiculous value for money. But right now, this week, it's going to be available. And so if you join at that level, you'll get unlimited one-to-ones. But for the pros and people who are in there, some of them are full-time professional photographers who've been doing it for years and are looking to maximize their business. And Facebook is something social media is really important. So one of the first things, I'm trying to find my picture, sorry, bear with me. Not that one. Where's it gone? Oh, keep moving. There it is. Right. Social media on Facebook, boosting posts, Facebook ads. What's it all about? What are the difference? When should I use what? How should I post on my Facebook page? Now I'm 56. I'm not of the social media era, but I spent a long time learning, so I'm pretty robust with it now. I've got 25,000 people on my Facebook page, a couple of 3,000 people on the dog photography page, so it works really well. And the proof is in the pudding. So we've got, I'm just thinking, so Tony, one of our members, he went live on Friday last week. So he joined the academy as a pro aspiring pro with the intention of, with everything else that's going on in the world, he wanted to become a professional photographer. He's had a camera for a while, so he knows how to use camera, but that's what he wanted to do. So we worked with him every step of the way: website, Facebook, social media, camera settings, portfolio. We did all that over a number of weeks. We went live not even a week ago, and he's got nearly 400 people following him already, and getting lots of engagement on his page, getting bookings, and absolutely brilliant. So that's a really important part of what we do. So if you're thinking, and so the other thing I was going to say, so that's somebody who's a sort of full-time pro, but there are a number of people in the academy who have started to see how I share and help people, because as a professional photographer in the group, in the academy, I don't hold anything back. There's no secrets. I tell you everything, all the secrets to the success I've managed to enjoy. So there's no holds back, no holds barred even. But what's really important to keep in mind is there's quite a lot of people who just think, I might do this on a part-time basis. With the current economy, the way things are, people are going, let's just see. Let's just see if, let's set up a Facebook page and maybe a website, and I can help you with that. And it's really not as complicated as it might seem. And, maybe on a part-time basis, see if I can get some income coming in. That's how I started. And it's how some of the most successful dog photographers, that's what I do, in the world started. And I know pretty much all of them. Here I am 5 years later with going on 30,000 people following my page, clients' bookings. I think I've taken four bookings today. It's an amazingly busy business. And what a great way to earn a living. So if you're thinking about it, if it's in the back of your mind, you know what, you might want to sort of consider joining. So the other things that we'll do online with that is, so leads. How do I get customers? Where do I get them from? How do I find them? Once I've got them, how do I engage with them? What do I need to do to help them understand what I'm offering, and then potentially turn into customers, and happy customers that get the service that you are offering as a business, whether it's dog photography, whether it's weddings, whether it's portraits, whether it's headshots, whether it's mother and baby shots, newborn, whatever it is, the logic is the same, and it applies to all of it. So that's a really, really important part of what we do for pro aspiring pros. So right, let's see if there's any questions. It's unusually quiet today. I normally get a few questions, but it doesn't matter. But if you've got something and you're watching, ask me a question, because it's free. So let me just talk about a few sort of techniques. So here's let's have a little look. Where has it gone? Oh, wrong way. So settings. So one of the things that we did on the wildlife workshop recently up in Bonnie, Scotland, was talk to people. And here we go. This is the kind of shot you'll get without using the right kind of settings. So we help people with that. Right. Salmon. Let me see if I can find my salmon picture. Here we go. Now I was very lucky. I entered the Farlow's Fun in the Field competition and I won it with this image. So I'm very chuffed about that. But more importantly, we were able to help people with this sort of stuff. So, you know, this is a relatively complex kind of shot. It's a combination of knowing where to be anywhere. And Alan, who works with us on these wildlife workshops, is a very keen salmon fisherman. So he knows where all these places are. But then you've got to think about settings. So this shot, I'm shooting at about 2.5 thousandths of a second, 2,000 probably. I'm in manual focus, manual settings, everything's manual. So what you'll need to do is you sort of pre-focus somewhere halfway along the distance between you and the rocks on the other side in this image, because that's where you hope the salmon's going to jump. You get a shutter speed set to where it's going to be. You use a very sturdy tripod and a remote camera release, and then at the right time, without checking your phone, looking away, you're sitting there like this. At the right time, you can take some images. Take some doing. Now, let me just show you, and if you won't mind me showing you this image. So, you know, here's my image, look. So that's won a competition. I use a 1DX Mark II, you know, it's a top-end professional camera with a, you know, really nice lens, and I've been doing it 5.5 years. Here's an image that one of our beginners managed to take as a result of working with me on that workshop. Now, if that had been entered, and not mine, I think that would have won. Tack sharp, lovely little flick of the tail, and everything else. And I'll also tell you that member is now upgraded to the pro bit, not because he wants to be a pro, but because he loves the one-to-one stuff and has also been on our workshops. But that's a Canon 70D. So it's quite an old camera, and doesn't mean, so it's one of the big things that I like to do in the academy is make sure people understand that you don't need to have really, really expensive equipment to take great photos. It's all about knowing how to use what you've got. So another example of that is, and I know I was talking about this the other day, is let me find it, is this sort of image. You know, again, people sort of think you've got to have really, really posh equipment. You don't. I use this technique in this image called pre-focus, where I focused on the heather and took the shot at the right time. So my camera's not, the lens is not focusing, there's no tracking going on. So a basic camera can do that, because all you're doing, if you imagine that's the heather, you pre-focus on the heather, and then whatever jumps over, when you're taking pictures, everything in this line is in focus. And so that's what's going to be in focus, that's how it works. Right, how are we doing? Half an hour. So I'll probably start wrapping this up, because I'm conscious that people, it's lunchtime, people got things to do. Let me just check the comments. No questions? Well, that's fine, but unusual. Normally get a few questions. Right, what was I going to do to wrap up? Oh yeah, I was just going to talk about JPEG and RAW and editing, just briefly, and then I will wrap up. So if you've got any questions, let me know, because we'll be gone soon. So here's a picture of a dog that's unedited. Now I took that in RAW, because I always shoot in RAW, which means that when I come to edit it, I'm able to do this with it, in short. So all the details still there, and you can turn an image that looks pretty drab into a very powerful image. Now, shooting in JPEG, so a RAW image has got all the data and it will need editing. So when you look at it out of your camera on your computer, they always look a little bit flat and a little bit sort of cool, but that's because it's RAW. All the data's there. Be a 20 megabyte file, typically quite a big size. But a JPEG is a quarter of the size typically, or even less. But it will have been warmed up a bit. It will have whatever settings you've got on your camera done to the image. So it does like a pre-edit. So it might look a little bit better, but the rub is, what it does to make the image size so much smaller is it compresses data, chucks away pixels and stuff. So in this image, oh sorry, this one, what it would have done is where the dark parts of the dog are, it would have chucked away loads of pixels as well as the green in the background. So when you come to edit, you can still edit JPEGs, but you don't have as much room. The latitude is significantly less. And I can guarantee if that was a JPEG, you wouldn't have been able to do that with it. So that's a little tip about JPEGs. So there we go, nearly 40 minutes. So unless there's any questions, and let me just double check. I don't think there are, which is fine. Anybody's got, you can always message me if you've got any questions about the academy or lenses or equipment or anything like that. Drop me a message. You'll again look at the reviews on the Facebook, the Beyond the Lens Academy Facebook page. You'll see what people are saying there. So you know that's kind of what we're doing now. Just in summary, get yourself on that mailing list if that's something that you just want to be interested in what we're doing and see whether you want to join at the end of the month. If you want to join, that's end of the month, end of the week. If you want to join, it's really exciting. It's been mad busy already, and it's only Tuesday. Thursday night, midnight, maybe a little bit before, for 3 days. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll be open for new members. Monthly, annual membership. If you join monthly, there's no long-term commitment. You know, so if you join on an annual basis and after a couple of weeks you don't like it, you get your money back. Never happened, but you know, we don't tie people in. We're not that sort of business. That's kind of it, really. Just, you know, get on the mailing list. I'm doing these webinars, free ones, every day this week, and I think on Friday there's 2 or 3, on Thursday there's 2 or 3, and on Wednesday I think there's 2. So lots. So if you've looked at this today and found it interesting, but you want to ask some questions, or you just want some advice, or you just fancy listening to somebody talk to you about photography, have a little look on the Facebook page, because they're all there, all scheduled, so you can get a reminder. But if not, if you get yourself on the mailing list, the email's already gone out for this week. So I won't be sending, because I promised the members I don't send tons of emails out. What I might do, because I can tell when people subscribe, is anybody subscribed after today or from now onwards, I might send an email out to those people in the next couple of days, just sort of saying, these webinars are going on. But anyway, look, no more questions, doesn't look like it. So I will leave you in peace. I'll either hopefully see you on some more of these webinars I'm doing this week, or Facebook Lives, whatever you want to call them. But also, if you're interested in joining, it would be great to have you in the academy. Have a look at the reviews, see what people are saying. Don't just take my word for it. And I'd love to see you inside. But anyway, thanks for your time. Have a great day, and catch up soon. Thanks. Bye.